The Brooklyn Nets are an American professional basketball team based in the New York City borough of Brooklyn. The Nets compete in the National Basketball Association (NBA) as a member of the Atlantic Division of the Eastern Conference. The team plays its home games at Barclays Center. They are one of two NBA teams located in New York City. The other is the New York Knicks. The club was established in 1967 as a charter franchise of the NBA's rival league, the American Basketball Association (ABA). They played in New Jersey as the New Jersey Americans during their first season, before relocating to Long Island, New York, in 1968 and changing their name to the New York Nets. During this time, the Nets won 2 ABA championships, in 1974 and 1976. In 1976, the ABA merged with the NBA, and the Nets were absorbed into the NBA along with 3 other ABA teams: the San Antonio Spurs, Indiana Pacers, and Denver Nuggets, all of whom remain in the league to this day. In 1977, the team returned to New Jersey and played as the New Jersey Nets from 1977 to 2012. Led by star point guard Jason Kidd, the Nets reached the finals of 2 consecutive NBA seasons, 2001-02 and 2002-03, but failed to win either title. In the summer of 2012, the team moved to Barclays Center in Brooklyn, becoming the first major sports franchise in the borough since the departure of the Brooklyn Dodgers baseball team in 1957. Since moving to Brooklyn, the Nets have qualified for the playoffs on 6 occasions, including trips to the conference semifinals in 2014 and 2021. History. The Brooklyn Nets were founded in 1967 and initially played in Teaneck, New Jersey, as the New Jersey Americans. In its early years, the team led a nomadic existence, moving to Long Island in 1968 and playing in various arenas there as the New York Nets, led by Hall of Famer Julius, Dr. J. Irving. The Nets won 2 ABA championships in New York before becoming one of 4 ABA teams to be admitted into the NBA as part of the ABA-NBA merger in 1976. Unlike the other 3 ABA teams entering the NBA, who played in cities without any NBA presence, the Nets were required by the NBA to pay an encroachment fee of $4.8 million. Equivalent to $23 million in 2021, to the New York Knicks. The team financed that payment by selling Irving's contract to the Philadelphia 76ers. And the Nets went from winning the last ABA title in 1975-76 to having the worst record in the NBA. In 1976–77. The team then moved back to New Jersey in 1977 and became the New Jersey Nets. During their time in the state, the Nets played in 2 consecutive NBA Finals in the 2001-02 and 2002-03 seasons, led on the court by point guard Jason Kidd. After playing 35 seasons in New Jersey, the team moved back to the state of New York, changed its geographic name to Brooklyn, and began playing in the new Barclays Center. Starting with the 2012-13 NBA season, the team's move from New Jersey to Brooklyn was approved unanimously by the NBA Board of Governors. On April 13, 2012, rivalries. Boston Celtics. During the early 2000s, the Nets were led by Jason Kidd and Kenyon Martin, while the Celtics were experiencing newfound success behind Paul Pierce and Antoine Walker. The rivalry began to heat up in the 2002 Eastern Conference Finals. which was preceded by trash-talking from the Celtics, who claimed Martin was a fake tough guy. Things progressed as the series started, and on-court tensions seemed to spill into the stands. Celtic fans berated Kidd and his family with chants of "wife beater." In response to Kidd's 2001 domestic abuse charge, when the series returned to New Jersey, Nets fans responded, with some brandishing signs that read, "Will someone please stab Paul Pierce?" referring to a nightclub incident in 2000 in which Pierce was stabbed 11 times. When asked about the fan barbs being traded, Kenyon Martin stated, "Our fans hate them. Their fans hate us." Bill Walton said at the time that Nets-Celtics was the beginning of the next great NBA rivalry during the Eastern Conference Finals in 2002. Led by Kidd, the Nets advanced to the NBA Finals, and the following year, swept Boston in the 2003 playoffs. On November 28, 2012, there were indications that the rivalry might be rekindled when an altercation occurred on the court, resulting in the ejection of Rajon Rondo, Gerald Wallace, and Chris Humphries. Rondo was suspended for 2 games in the aftermath, while Wallace and Kevin Garnett were fined. The story was revisited on December 25, when Wallace grabbed Garnett's shorts and the two had to be broken up by referees and players alike. In the 2019 NBA offseason, the Nets signed point guard Kyrie Irving. Coming off 2 seasons with the Celtics, Irving was described as selfish by many critics. This impression caused many Celtics fans to blame him for the Celtics' inability to get through to the playoffs. During a regular season game in the 2019-20 season between the Celtics and Nets, the Celtics fans displayed their displeasure with Irving by chanting, "Kyrie sucks," in TD Garden. When the series returned to Brooklyn 2 days later, the Nets fans chanted, "Kyrie's better," in response to the chants in Boston. The "Kyrie's better" chants reference to how the Celtics signed Kemba Walker after Irving left for the Nets. On May 30, 2021, a fan threw a water bottle at Irving at TD Garden following a Nets victory and a 3-1 lead in the series. New York Knicks. The Knicks-Nets rivalry has historically been a geographical one, with the Knicks playing in Madison Square Garden in the New York City borough of Manhattan, while the Nets played in the suburban area of Long Island and in New Jersey, and since 2012 have been playing at Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Media outlets have noted the Knicks-Nets rivalry's similarity to those of other New York City teams, such as the Major League Baseball (MLB) Subway Series rivalry between the American League (L.S.) New York Yankees and the National League (NL.S.) New York Mets, and the National Football League (NFL) rivalry between the National Football Conference (NFC.)'s New York Giants and the American Football Conference (AFC.)'s New York Jets, the result of the borough's proximity through the New York City subway. Historically, the boroughs of Manhattan and Brooklyn competed via the Dodgers-Giants rivalry, when the two teams were the Brooklyn Dodgers and the New York Giants. Like the Knicks and Nets, the Giants and Dodgers played in Manhattan and Brooklyn, respectively, and were fierce intraleague rivals. The rivalry between the New York Islanders and New York Rangers of the National Hockey League has also taken on a similar dimension since the Islanders moved to Barclays Center in 2015. Due to the Knicks being located in Manhattan and the Nets being located in Brooklyn, some media outlets have dubbed this rivalry Clash of the Boroughs. Toronto Raptors. A rivalry with the Toronto Raptors began in 2004. after Raptors guard, forward Vince Carter was traded to the New Jersey Nets. However, the two teams did not meet in the playoffs until 2007, when the Nets defeated the Raptors in the first-round series, 4-2. After a go-ahead shot by Richard Jefferson with 8 seconds left in Game 6 led to a 98-97 victory. 7 years later, the teams met again in the first round, and the series went to 7 games, with a game-winning block by Paul Pierce, giving the Nets the 104-103 victory. The series was noted for controversy when Toronto Raptors general manager Masai Ujiri made derogatory remarks towards Brooklyn at a fan rally outside Maple Leaf Square in Toronto before Game 1. Ujiri later apologized at halftime. The Raptors and Nets faced each other in the 2020 NBA playoffs in the first round, with Toronto winning the series 4-0. Season-by-season record. List of the last 5 seasons completed by the Nets. For the full season-by-season history, see List of Brooklyn Nets seasons. Note: GP equals games played. W equals wins. L equals losses. WL% equals winning percentage. Uniforms. New Jersey Americans. Upon debuting in the ABA in 1967, the New Jersey Americans wore white and red uniforms. The white uniforms contained red, blue and white stripes, with the team name and numerals in red with blue trim. The red uniforms mirror the striping configurations of the white uniforms, while the city name and numerals were in blue with white trim. New York Nets. 1968–1972. Moving to Long Island as the New York Nets, they kept the original Americans template except for the location and team name. The white uniforms featured a script, Nets, lettering with a tail accent below, while the red uniforms featured New York in block letters, similar to the New York Knicks. Over the years, the letters and stripes would endure a few adjustments. 1972 to 1977. The Nets changed uniforms upon moving to Nassau Coliseum. The white uniforms featured a thick blue stripe with white stars on the left, along with a red stripe and white outline. The team name is written in red block letters. The blue uniforms, which featured New York in white block letters, mirrored that of the white uniforms. New Jersey Nets. 1977 to 1981. 1983 to 1990. The Nets carried the Stars and Stripes uniform to New Jersey in 1977. The white uniform remained the same, but the blue uniform read Nets in front. The blue uniform later added New Jersey in white block letters inside the red stripe. 1981 to 1983. Upon moving to the Meadowlands in 1981, the Nets briefly changed their uniform set. The white uniform brought back the Nets script from the original New York Nets uniforms, but the color scheme became blue with red trim. The blue uniform featured New Jersey stacked together in a similar script style, and the letters were colored in red with white trim. 1990 to 1997. The Nets underwent a visual rebrand before the 1990–91 season. The white uniform featured a more futuristic Nets script in red with white and blue trim, while adding red and blue stripes. Initially, the Nets wore white and light blue gradient road uniforms that had a tie-dye effect, but switched to a solid blue uniform after only one season. Both blue uniforms featured the same Nets script in red with blue and white trim along with red and white stripes. 1997 to 2012. The Nets updated their visual identity prior to the 1997–98 season, going with a deeper red and navy scheme with silver accents. The white uniform, which remained virtually unchanged throughout its history, featured the team name in navy with silver and red trim. The navy uniform featured the city name in silver with navy and red trim. The dark gray alternate uniform, used until 2006, initially went with the city name in navy with white and red trim, but reversed the color scheme to white with red and navy trim after only 2 seasons. This uniform was the only one to feature the NJ alternate logo on the neckline. The red alternate uniform, which replaced the gray alternate and became the primary dark uniform in 2009, featured the team name in white with navy and silver trim. All uniforms featured thick navy and silver argyle stripes. Brooklyn Nets, 2012–2017. Upon moving to Brooklyn in 2012, the Nets went with a simple black and white uniform design. With Brooklyn in front of both the white and black uniforms, they also wore 3 different alternate uniforms. A gray-sleeved alternate with Brooklyn in Dodger blue was first used in 2013 as a visual recall to the Brooklyn Dodgers. A white-sleeved alternate with the team name in black featured the same stars and stripes look from the 1970s. A dark gray sleeveless alternate, meant to recall the 1980s New Jersey Nets uniforms, featured the team name in white and the city name in white written inside a black stripe. 2017 present. With the switch from Adidas to Nike, the Nets kept most aspects of their visual identity intact. The white uniform became the association uniform while the black uniform became the icon uniform. The Nets have had 2 different versions of the statement uniform. The first set, with Brooklyn in white, was in dark gray and featured the same stars and stripes look from the 1970s. The uniform was updated in 2019 to a lighter gray base and black, dark gray stripes. With Brooklyn written in graffiti style designed by Eric Hayes, the Nets also employed a 4th uniform option, the City uniform. The 2017–18 Black City uniform featured the full team name spelled in white along with gray accents inspired from the Brooklyn Bridge. The following season, it was replaced with a black uniform featuring stylized Brooklyn camo patterns as a tribute to the Notorious B.I.G. for 2019–20. The Nets wore white versions of the Biggie uniforms, but with Hayes-designed Bed Stuy graffiti lettering in front, a reference to Bedford-Stuyvesant where the Notorious B.I.G. grew up. The 2020–21 City uniform, which honors Brooklyn-born artist Jean-Michel Basquiat, is predominantly black and features Brooklyn Nets written in Basquiat's style along with multicolored striping. In the 2021–22 season, the Nets City uniform featured visual references to the Nets uniform history. The navy base and white and silver argyle stripes recalled the 1997–2009 uniforms. The Nets wordmark and lettering were taken from the 1990–97 uniforms. A red stripe with white stars honored the Stars and Stripes uniform of the 1970s and 1980s. A modified version of the 1980s New Jersey Nets logo, replacing the New Jersey outline with the map of Brooklyn, was added to the right leg. The 1997–2012 Shield logo, also tweaked to feature the current B alternate logo, was added on the waist. A 5th uniform option, the Earned uniform, is released occasionally and is exclusive only to the teams who qualified in the NBA playoffs. The previous year. The Nets, by virtue of qualifying in the 2020 NBA playoffs, were given an earned uniform. The design featured the herringbone parquet style of the Barclays Center court in shades of black and gray, with Helvetica lettering inspired from the signs found at the New York City subway. Culture. Mascot. The mascot of the New Jersey Nets was Sly the Silver Fox, who debuted on October 31, 1997 as part of the rebranding of the Nets for the 1997–98 season. Prior to that, the Nets' mascot was an anthropomorphic dragon named Duncan the Dragon. After the Nets moved to Brooklyn, the team introduced a new superhero mascot named Brooklyn Knight, a pun on the demonym, Brooklynite. On November 3, 2012, in his first appearance, he was lowered from the ceiling of Barclays Center amid sparks and fanfare and introduced by Nets public address announcer David Diamante. Here to defend Brooklyn. He's the Brooklyn Knight. The mascot was co-created by Marvel Entertainment, a sister company to NBA broadcasters ABC and ESPN. The character also starred in 32-page comic book published by Marvel titled Brooklyn Knight No. 1. Written by Jason Aaron with art by Mike Deodato. After the Nets' second season in Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Knight mascot was retired. Team anthem. On November 3, 2012, the Nets introduced a new team anthem titled, Brooklyn, Something to Lean On. Written and recorded by Brooklyn-born musician John Forte. The song is notable for its refrain, which features the Brooklyn chant that has been popular with fans in the Barclays Center. Brooklyn Brigade. The Brooklyn Brigade is a group of fans who are known for their loud chants and passionate attitude towards the Nets. The group was founded in November 2012 by Nets fan and Brooklyn native Udong Bobby Edemeka. That year the Nets were beginning their first season since making the transition to the Barclays Center from the Prudential Center, where they had played from 2010 to 2012. Edemeka attended a few early season games of the new Brooklyn team. At the time, the Nets were seen as an expansion team by the league and fans alike. Edemeka noticed that the team lacked a solid fan base in their new home, and decided to purchase tickets for a small group of roughly 20 fans who he noticed were regular followers of the team on the SB Nation online blog, Nets Daily. The Brigade, at this time, was not relegated to Section 114. Instead, Edemeka would purchase tickets in whichever section he could, which often included nosebleed seats. The Brigade initially did not get much recognition from the Nets. Edemeka met with the CEO Irina Pavlova of the ONEXIM group, who was fond of the group's antics. Although Pavlova was a supporter of the group, other members of the organization were resistant to showing support for the Brigade. During the 2014-2015 NBA season, however, the Brooklyn Nets organization began assigning seats to the Brigade in Section 114 of the Barclays Center. This section is adjacent to the press booth and gave the Brooklyn Brigade exposure on a regional level and then eventually on a national level. During the Eastern Conference semi-finals in 2014, while the Nets battled the Miami Heat, Brooklyn Nets and Barclays Center CEO Brett Yormark noticed the effect that the Brigade had on the arena, and he started to visit Section 114 distributing Nets apparel. In 2016, the Nets hired Sean Marks as their general manager, who became an immediate supporter of the group. During the 2018-2019 season, The Nets reserved Section 114 for passionate fans, and called it the BK Block. Although the Brigade is an independent fan group of the Nets, the block comprises mostly Brigade members. Management. On September 18, 2019, Joseph Tsai, the executive vice chairman of the Alibaba Group, completed the acquisition of full ownership of the Brooklyn Nets. With the closing of the transaction, Tsai became NBA governor of the Nets and its affiliates. Additionally, former Turner Broadcasting president David Levy was named CEO of the Nets and Barclays Center. On November 12, the Nets and Barclays Center announced that David Levy would step down from the CEO position he had assumed less than 2 months before. Oliver Weisberg, president of Tsai's holding company J. Tsai Sports, assumed an interim CEO role. Ownership history. The original owner of the Nets franchise was trucking magnate Arthur J. Brown, who founded the team in 1967. The next year, Brown sold the team for $1.1 million to entrepreneur Roy Bowe. Due to financial losses suffered while the team was on Long Island, Bowe moved the team back to New Jersey in 1977 and sold the team a year later to a group of 7 local businessmen led by Alan N. Cohen and Joseph Taub, who became known as the Secaucus 7, after a lengthy ownership of the franchise and numerous unsuccessful attempts to improve the financial situation of the team. The Secaucus 7 finally sold the team in 1998 to a group of local real estate developers led by Raymond Chambers and Lewis Katz, who called themselves the Community Youth Organization, and wanted to move the team to Newark, New Jersey. The next year the group signed an agreement with New York Yankees owner George Steinbrenner to form Yankee Nets, a holding company that owned the 2 teams, and later also the New Jersey Devils, and increase leverage in future broadcast contracts by negotiating together. After receiving offers from several broadcast partners, including Cablevision, which held their rights at that time, Yankee Nets decided to launch its own regional sports television called the Yes Network. Yankee Nets failed in its attempts to secure a deal with Newark to construct a new arena in the city. By that point in time, tensions between the management of the Yankees, Nets, and the Devils had caused a rift between them, and a decision was made to split the group. With their plan to move the Nets dead, the Community Youth Organization placed the team up for sale. After a short bidding process, the group secured a deal in 2004 with real estate developer Bruce Ratner to buy the team for $300 million. Defeating a similar offer by Charles Kushner and Senator John Corzine of New Jersey. Ratner had purchased the team with the intent of moving it to a new arena in Brooklyn, which was to be a centerpiece of the large-scale Atlantic Yards development. Rapper Jay-Z owned a small minority stake in the Nets from 2003 until 2013. Jay-Z was a leader in the marketing for the team and helped encourage their move from New Jersey to the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, in which he also held a stake. He relinquished his stake after registering as a sports agent with his new agency Roc Nation Sports. To avert any potential conflicts of interest, his shares were eventually sold to singer, rapper, actor and entrepreneur Will Pan, making Pan the first American of Taiwanese descent to own a U.S. professional sports franchise. On September 24, 2009, Mikhail Prokhorov, Russia's third richest man according to Forbes, confirmed his intention to become majority owner of the Nets. Prokhorov sent an offer to the team owners requesting that the controlling shares of the basketball club be sold to his company, Onexim, for a symbolic price. In return, Prokhorov funded a loan of $700 million for the construction of Barclays Center, and attracted additional funds from Western banks. Prokhorov stated that he initiated the deal to help push Russian basketball to a new level of development. On May 11, 2010, following approval from the other owners of NBA teams, Prokhorov had become the principal owner of the Nets. In late 2017, Prokhorov agreed to sell a 49% stake in the team to Joseph Tsai, with an option for Tsai to become the majority owner. The option was exercised in August 2019, with Tsai also buying the Nets arena, Barclays Center, from Prokhorov for nearly $1 billion in a separate deal. The NBA Board of Governors unanimously approved the sale to Tsai on September 18, 2019. Facilities. Home arenas. Source. Practice facilities. The Nets' practice facility and headquarters for the team's basketball operations are located at the Hospital for Special Surgery Training Center in the Industry City complex in the Sunset Park neighborhood of Brooklyn. The facility opened on February 17, 2016, and is built on the roof of an empty warehouse in the complex, occupying 70,000 square feet of space in total. The renovation project cost roughly $50 million. The opening of the training center completed the Nets' move to Brooklyn. The team's previous practice facility was at the 65,000 square foot PNY Center in East Rutherford, New Jersey, which opened in 1998. Prior to that, the team practiced at the ARPA Recreation Center in North Bergen, New Jersey, sharing their lockers and practice courts with truck drivers who used the facility, and at Ramapo College in Mahwah, New Jersey. In the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy in November 2012, PNY Center suffered a power outage and extensive water damage due to flooding. And for several months, the team used the smaller training spaces and practice courts inside the Barclays Center instead. Players and coaches. Current roster. Retained draft rights. The Nets hold the draft rights to the following unsigned draft picks who have been playing outside the NBA. A drafted player, either an international draftee or a college draftee who is not signed by the team that drafted him, is allowed to sign with any non-NBA team. In this case, the team retains the player's draft rights in the NBA until 1 year after the player's contract with the non-NBA team ends. This list includes draft rights that were acquired from trades with other teams. Franchise leaders. Bold denotes still active with the team. Italics denotes still active, but not with the team. Name includes combined statistics for the team from both the ABA and NBA. Points scored. Regular season. As of the end of the 2020-21 season. Other statistics. Regular season. As of the end of the 2020-21 season. Retired numbers. Basketball Hall of Famers. Notes. FIBA Hall of Fame. Notes. Individual awards. NBA. ABA. NBA All-Star Weekend. NBA D-League, G-League affiliation. The Nets signed an agreement with the Springfield Armor to become its exclusive NBA development league affiliate starting in the 2011-12 season. This made the Nets the second team to opt for a D-League hybrid affiliation. The first being the Houston Rockets with the Rio Grande Valley Vipers. Springfield ownership maintained control over business, marketing, and day-to-day operations, with the Nets having control over coaching and player decisions. This hybrid model was well received by GMs and owners. However, after 3 seasons, the Detroit Pistons purchased the armor from its former owners, and moved and renamed the team the Grand Rapids Drive. On November 6, 2015, the Nets announced that they had purchased a new D-League team to be called the Long Island Nets. The team played their home games during the 2016-17 season at the Barclays Center and then at the Nassau Coliseum in Uniondale, New York after renovations were complete for the 2017-18 season. The Long Island Nets became the 12th D-League team to be owned by an NBA team. Media. The television home of the Nets is currently the Yes Network, which the team helped create while they were under the corporate umbrella of Yankee Nets LLC, a merger of business operations between the Nets and the New York Yankees. After the dissolution of Yankee Nets and Bruce Ratner's purchase of the team, Yes signed a long-term deal to keep broadcasting Nets games. The sale to the Ratner Group did not include the percentage of Yes that was previously owned by the Nets, which remains with the pre-merger Nets owners. Prior to that, the Nets' TV home was Fox Sports Net New York and Sports Channel New York. Select playoff games air over the air on WWOR-TV instead of on Yes. This is only when Yankees games are airing at the same time. Previously these games aired on WLNY-TV or WPIX. The current flagship radio station of the Nets is WFAN, which took over the radio rights to the Nets after losing their basketball contract with the Knicks, who moved to WEPN. Prior to that, Nets games aired on WNEW, WMCA, WVNJ, WNBC, WQEW, and WOR. In the club's early ABBA years, some Sunday road games were televised in a package carried by WPIX. The team's later ABBA tenure featured more frequent road telecasts on their current broadcast partner, WWOR-TV, known then as WOR-TV. It continued airing road games for a time once the team joined the NBA in 1976. Television. Ian Eagle has been the sole television play-by-play announcer for the Nets since the departure of Marv Albert in 2011. Eagle became the lead television voice for the team in 1995 after serving as the team's radio voice for 1 year. While Albert joined the Nets following his firing by MSG Network in 2005 after 4 decades as the lead voice of the New York Knicks. When Albert joined the broadcast team, he became the lead broadcaster with Eagle as his substitute, beginning in the 2009-10 season. Due to Albert's advancing age and his other commitments, Eagle once again assumed the lead play-by-play spot. Ryan Ruocco substitutes for Eagle during the latter's CBS NFL and NCAA commitments. As of 2021, Sarah Kustok and Richard Jefferson provide color commentary on Yes Network broadcasts, and Michael Grady serves as courtside reporter. Radio. WFAN is the Nets' current radio flagship, the station having assumed radio rights from WOR following the 2003-04 season. Chris Carino and Tim Capstraw comprise the broadcast team. Carino on play-by-play and Capstraw as the analyst. The games air on other Entercom-operated stations, such as WCBS AM and WXBK, when there are programming conflicts on WFAN. Other broadcasters who have worked for the Nets include Howard David, Bob Papa, Bill Raftery, Kelly Tripucka, Albert King, Mike O'Koren, Spencer Ross, Mel Proctor, Joe Tate, John Sterling, John Minko and Mark Jackson. Nets games have also aired on WNEW and WQEW in the past. During the club's ABBA years, announcers included Marty Glickman, Marv Albert's brothers Al Albert and Steve Albert, Baseball Hall of Fame pitcher Bob Gibson, Bob Goldschall, as well as Sterling and Vince DiTommaso. The latter two joined the club's move into the NBA. References. Notes. Sources. External links. Official website.